Alrighty, so sometime yesterday and possibly even earlier, the Xenon testnet had frozen. The node is still alive. It'll still respond to queries to v2 info and will serve blocks that it has, but it does not appear to be synchronizing blocks with the rest of the network. And the chain is still alive too. So go testnet miners. Thank you guys so much for keeping everything alive while our systems are down. Hooray, blockchains. The follower froze this morning or late last night, I'm not sure which, but it made about 100 blocks more progress than the main Xenon node. And we're still trying to figure out why. Looking at the chat history, it looks like we have one little bit of insight with microblocks. Aaron, you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, sure. So this problem basically is preventing the Xenon miner from, or our Xenon miner from mining any blocks or issuing any block commits.
Yeah.
There's basically two things going on. So one is that currently the mining logic, if it can't load a parent microblock stream, it errors out and will not attempt to mine an anchor block.
That's a problem.
Yeah, so that's probably bad behavior. And then, yeah, so that could be remedied and that would sort of mask the underlying problem a little bit. But then there's another underlying problem, which maybe indicates that there's some other problem going on, which is that the microblock stream that it's trying to load, like the error that it's getting is that like it's attempting to find a microblock that is the parent of a microblock with sequence number 0.
Sorry, say that again. A parent, it is trying to find a microblock that is a parent of a microblock that is sequence number 0.
Exactly.
So what the loop should do is the parent of any microblock whose sequence number is 0 is the anchor block. Like they should have the same hash.
I agree. It should be the anchor block, but what's likely happening here is like the way that the loop checks that is it just checks whether or not it's equal to the given anchor block hash. But if that hash is something else for some reason, the loop will like iterate and then fail. So that begs the second question, which is like, how is this microblock being generated? How is it being accepted?
Yeah, it shouldn't even be accepted, period, because it should have, yeah, it should have been only accepted if its parent exists.
Right.
So there's a bug somewhere in the query logic potentially.
Yeah, right. So there's like a bug somewhere in how either this microblock is being processed, queried, accepted. There's a bug somewhere that's making this microblock exist. So that's sort of the second issue. Neither of these actually tell us why the miner, the follower, and anybody's local node have different chain views.
Right, because what when I was looking at this yesterday, I noticed that the miner had stopped even trying to download new blocks for some reason.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a cascading error of some kind. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So that's the state of the world right now.
I'm collecting the change states right now from the miner and follower, uploading that to Dropbox as we speak. As for the logs, though, we haven't been retaining the raw log files since the Krypton testnet. So unfortunately, we won't have that for this. So at the very least, we could use Kibana, but I know that that's not as effective as grepping through a raw log file.
I can throw in the chain state from my miner, and I have debug logs, at least on my miner, for maybe a day plus, if that helps.
Would that be helpful if I re-enabled generating raw log files for Xenon?
I,
Yeah, I think
I
so.
personally find it helpful, but I don't know how much disk that's going to eat up though.
Okay. I don't think it's set to like debug log mode. So hopefully not too much. We were
Well,
able
if
to
it's
deal
not
with it.
debugged, then it won't be super useful.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
it's pretty quiet.
Yeah,
when it's not debugged.
we get debug logs in Kibana.
Oh, okay then. So maybe it is then. I probably just don't remember. I mean, we were able to handle the throughput in Krypton just fine. So if Xenon logging is similar, then we should be able to handle it.
Yeah, so on that, I think that we are missing some logs on Kibana somehow. Like I was looking for some logs on Friday, and they're not showing up. So yeah, we should take the logs on Kibana with a grain of salt, I think.
Are you looking at the logs in Kibana or like
Yeah.
the logs directly from Kubernetes?
On Kibana.
Okay, interesting.
Like if you look for the Genesis events, you won't find them all, which is
Might be dropping some. That's interesting.
I wonder if there was like some load going on with Elasticsearch at that time. Maybe it didn't get uploaded or processed. I'm not sure. I'd have to take a look at that.
all right. And Ludo, do you also want to talk through your comment on Discord about missing branching blocks?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I was like grabbing some logs. Yeah, I wanted to. So I've been doing some tests this weekend, and sometimes it just takes a while to get my transaction mined. And I did notice that sometimes we are like missing some branching block, meaning that no one is mining some blocks. So I added an extract on Discord. So basically you can see that, so it's like we had 5 events in 50 blocks. Either like we are missing some blocks or some blocks are coming not in the right order. Yeah, so.
When we have the chain state available, I can take a closer look at the exact structure of the chain, like what sortations were missed and what the relationship is between the sortations that were not missed.
Yeah, so basically,
That log extract doesn't appear to be in order.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Whenever log messages in Kibana happen within like the same millisecond or so, the Kibana will just order them arbitrarily.
oh, but it's not Kibana, it's my local miner.
Yeah, but if you look at block 2173, that out of order block,
Yeah.
the info log is 4 minutes before the prior one.
So what would that mean then?
No idea. It would mean that the blocks aren't actually arriving out of order, right?
Okay, but so that's one case, but like we are still missing some blocks, right?
Yeah, we're missing a ton of blocks, but
Yeah.
I think we only get these log messages if people mine during that block, right?
But
And there's no, so we're just like not mining. Like the Xenon miner basically hasn't mined up, our Xenon miner basically hasn't mined a block in 3 days, or 4 days or something. So any blocks that are getting mined are like just happening because other people are running miners occasionally.
Yep. Once the chain state's available, we'll be able to take a closer look at this and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get the chain states in. I think from my perspective, like the most important thing to understand is, there is a few issues. One is the Xenon miner is is just stalled. It's not making progress. But then for a while, and maybe even now, it seems that there are several independent forks that are making progress simultaneously. So my local miner is at tip height 410. The Xenon follower is at 351, and presumably there are other kind of forks. So the network isn't converging. I think that's the other thing that we need to kind of dig into a little bit.
We'll want to figure that out. Do you know if any other nodes have a different chain tip from those, like any other third-party nodes?
I haven't checked, but we could probably crawl the V2 info of all the publicly accessible nodes.
Yeah, should do that too.
Yeah. And then do you know if like these chain tips are like subsets of each other? Like the follower is at chain tip, whatever, 150 behind your block, but is that a chain tip that your node includes?
I don't know. I haven't looked
Okay.
into that. Yeah.
I think the Xenon miner is a sub chain of the follower, but I think the Xenon miner is trying to remine the same uncle block though.
I see.
All right. Well, so looks like the plan is let's get the chain states in, and then we'll do some debugging. I'm going to let my local miner kind of continue running while this is happening. Once we have all the chain state, I can throw in my chain state as well as my debug logs into a Dropbox folder. And then is it okay to just restart both the miner and the follower and the API to see if they catch up?
Well, don't do that just yet. Like if there's any sort of running information we can do, like that would be useful, but maybe we should have like a deadline where we should just reset it unconditionally because we just don't know yet.
Sure. What is it?
What kind of running information are you trying to get though?
What if there's a way to what if there's a way to reproduce a problem by like hitting the node's network endpoint or something like that?
I see.
I mean, again, I don't know if that's even useful, but like I'd rather not have to wait to reproduce the problem if it does turn out to be useful. That's all.
Gotcha.
All right, we can table this. We can keep working on this asynchronously. Moving to the GitHub board here.
Yeah, before we do that, can we just set a deadline where we will unconditionally reset? Because right now we're kind of blocked on all testing on Xenon because the Explorer is down, the API is down. So I would like to set some time, whether it's, do we need another hour after this meeting, 2 hours?
Do you want would 2 hours work for everyone? So reset at 2 p.m.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
Yeah. Unless we have like some concrete ideas that we want to try, I would say we should just restart the nodes. I mean, we're not making any fixes, so in all likelihood, this problem will happen again. So it's not like we won't get the opportunity to debug this outside of the chain state.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm in favor of like 0 here, just because like I have no plans to try and do anything to get more information out of these running nodes than the chain state and the logs.
All right, that works for me then.
Like if you do have a plan to get information out of these running nodes, then yeah, we can delay. But unless we have a plan to get more information,
there's one thing that we want to do, and I want to figure out why it's not even trying to download any blocks from its peers.
I see.
Has there been like a panic somewhere that got hidden in the logs, or is there a deadlock condition we could see in GDB?
Gotcha.
That's really what I'm interested in. Like a lot of these problems ought to go away if it were the case that the Xenon miner would just pull blocks from its sibling miners. Because sure, maybe the Xenon node's miner broke somehow and it stopped being able to produce valid blocks, but that doesn't mean that. But that what should happen then, if the downloader is working correctly, is some other miner would eventually produce a longer fork that the Xenon miner would switch to.
Yeah. So I guess like if you want to investigate that, then yeah, we can delay resetting.
Like I just want to get like a core dump. Maybe that could
Right.
be one thing that we could just do, and that would be enough.
Yeah.
I could help you out with that if you don't have access to the pod. I haven't used GDB before, but happy to help out.
Okay, I do have access to the pod. I can just get it dumped right after the meeting.
Okay.
All right, so as soon as Jude gives a clear, once you have a core dump, then we can just restart the nodes. All right.
Alrighty, done with the testnet check-in? Moving on to the main board. Cool, reviewer approved. Matt, can we merge this, or is this a mergeable thing here?
Sorry, the video is like over the screen right now. Which one are we looking at?
So we're talking about your pull request, the Stacks 1.0 to Stacks 2.0 automated balance and lockup validation.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's just waiting on review.
Who still needs to review it?
I think Aaron, if you want to.
Alrighty. Review in progress. We got the Fixed Clarity JS SDK commit message from Charlie. I think it's also waiting on Aaron.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a really small update just to a workflow. That was already approved, it looks like. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that all set to be merged?
Usually we have 2 reviewers per PR. Ludo approved it. We're just waiting for Aaron.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
So Pascal sent this minor PR 13 days ago, and I have not taken a look at it yet because I've been dealing with the other problems with Xenon, so I apologize. Is there anything you want to talk about this, Pascal?
Pascal is not on the call today. He sent me a note that he won't be able to make it. So he's going to look at the recording afterwards.
Okay, sounds good. Consistently getting conflicting nonces in mempool. Did we close this? Is this fixed?
I mean, we haven't seen the same error, but then the faucet hasn't been working in.
Yeah,
Yeah, faucet errors if the faucet's not running, right?
exactly. There's no way they're seeing this error right now.
Hooray, success. We'll leave it open until we can get a positive result. This is reviewer approved, right, Matt? This is the same issue. Pretty much got it.
Yeah, just the issue for the PR.
Okay. Put that in here. Emitting lockup events for the Genesis block.
That was merged and rolled back. So,
All right, closing.
right. Can we close, Matt?
I mean, we could just put it on like the ice box. I don't know.
Oh, sorry. Should I not
But
have opened that? Close that?
So the main reason for including the lockup events is we want to show the lockup events in the Explorer.
Yeah, but I think there's so much more work to be done for that to be working. Like we can just we might not even be able to get around to this.
Okay. But there's something that we can enable afterwards, right? It's not a consensus breaking change, can be done purely on the event dispatcher and the sidecar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can even patch it right now, but by directly seeding the blockchain API, right, Matt?
Yeah, that's another option.
Yeah, let's just keep it open for now, so at least we know that it's not done.
Sounds good. Stacks liquid supply is broken.
So we merged like a somewhat temporary fix for this.
Right. Because we made it so that the Stacks liquid supply variable is equal to whatever it was in the parent block now, right?
Yes. Which is like, I think what it was initially.
But it doesn't
So-
reflect any like burns that happen in the same block though.
Correct, or the Coinbase.
Correct.
So it's like a somewhat strictly wrong variable, and will probably bite us at some point if we don't fix this. So I would consider updating Stacks liquid supply to be a mainnet blocker.
All right.
I have a question concerning this liquid supply. Like, if a token is locked, is it counted in the liquid supply?
Yes. So if it's locked in the stacking contract, not if it's in the vesting.
Yeah, sure. It's not even minted. Okay.
Right.
Did everyone
I'm sorry.
simultaneously mute?
I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was muted. I was just asking, like, do you want to try to put a timeline for this issue on?
Sure. I mean,
Is this the STX liquid supply one?
yes.
I thought, Aaron, didn't you already send a PR for this?
Yeah, but it's kind of a temporary fix. So what
I
it
see.
is it sets the Stacks liquid supply based on the prior block, but it will miss any minted tokens in the Coinbase and the lockup, and any burns that occur in the same block. So it's kind of just like strictly wrong right now. We also use it outside of Clarity to evaluate things. So particular POX and other places use this Stacks liquid supply. And so if the amount being returned is wrong, that's a problem.
Yep.
And do you have a sense of like what kind of the proper fix for this looks like in terms of complexity and risk?
Yeah, so I think that the proper approach here is to just like have a single Marf variable that's getting updated as either tokens get minted or burned. So it basically behaved the same as the liquid supply of NFTs in our system, or FTs in our system, where anytime a mint event occurs, you update this variable. I think total lines of code change is probably in like measured in the dozens. So yeah, I think that this is probably like a half day to a day of work.
Okay. But this would be consensus breaking.
Yeah.
Okay. In which case we should try and incorporate this basically ASAP, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I would say, yeah, let's debug the sort of issues with the network convergence, and then get this in and maybe plan for, and this would be, since this would be a chain reset, you know, we should just set a time for it and do it.
Yeah.
Are there like any other consensus breaking changes that sort of are either in flight or expected that we want to bundle together?
Yeah, I discovered this particular issue last night when I was working on 1805. I noticed that it is possible, it is allowed under the consensus rules that you can send a block commit whose parent block commit was not the sortition winner. I think that's a bug, but I'm not entirely sure because the behavior changed as part of the SIP 007 work.
Yeah, I would say this is probably, yeah, this is probably either a bug or bad behavior. Like, I think that nodes would continue to function without this, but like, there's no reason that we should accept block commits
Yeah, I confirmed that this is like, but half my weekend is like tracking this thing down just because like the commit would be accepted, but the block would never be valid because it was always generating bad BRF proofs. Because turns out the seed
Right.
proved on wasn't the sortition winner.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so this is a bug. We can fold this in with with the next consensus breaking change, the next Xenon rollout.
Yeah. The other, I guess, consensus breaking change in the pipeline before we launch mainnet is setting our block limits and initial cost functions. Like that's going to need to occur. And then we're going to need to convince ourselves that those blocks are not going to cause a DDoS on the network.
And is that pending the benchmarking that Reed is doing or the integration test that you were working on?
So I think that it's somewhat pending the benchmarks. It's like once we have the benchmarks, then we can set the block limit.
Okay. So I think we should try to maybe divide and conquer. So maybe Aaron can own getting all of the consensus breaking changes over the finish line, let's say by Wednesday, while, Jude, maybe you can focus on debugging or just looking at the Xenon issues from this past weekend, try to figure out what's happening with the network, see if we can uncover anything that we want to incorporate by then.
Sounds good. That's what I was going to recommend too.
Yeah.
Alrighty, moving on then. In progress, I hope to have a PR for this by tomorrow, the making POX anchors forkable. Have it working locally. I just need to test it more, and testing it's kind of a longer process than I would have hoped, just because the act of trying to create and simulate many different POX forks is itself a challenge. Test ground for large scale testing. Jay Wiley, I love the work you're doing here now that I'm starting to see the results of it. At what point do you want to consider this issue closed though? Like what's our success criteria?
The next step is I need to run a larger scale test on this. We've got 30 nodes that have been tested successfully now with some minor configuration changes. I sent a message to Ludo because he raised a specific number of nodes he wanted to test on. I just want confirmation on that. And then I'll do some math, figure out how many VMs we need to rerun a large scale test.
Sounds good. In the coming weeks, I hope to have some time to work on an anti-entropy protocol for transaction propagation, so I can help you work on another related test that generates a crap ton of transactions and make sure they all get mined. Moving on to in progress, feature request. I think this is related to Pascal's PR here, but Pascal's not here. Benchmarking harness for measuring cost analysis constraints. Reed's working on this, right?
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. I have a separate repository for this work. Just was having some weird Rust cargo issues with when I was trying to include this in the main Stacks blockchain repo. So I created a new repo and have included the Stacks repo as a dependency. But yeah, it's coming along pretty well. I think maybe the most difficult part is just that it's not super easy to generalize. Well, I won't get too deep into the specifics here, but there's like a decent amount of kind of manual work that just has to happen function by function. So yeah, I'm kind of going through each and every Clarity function and making sure that the benchmarking harness kind of can take into account the differences between the functions and the fact that some take different numbers of arguments than others and different types and whatnot. But yeah, it's coming along. I'll probably have to sync up with Aaron about this later today and just, make sure that everything is looking good.
All right, sounds good. New issues, event lockup events, and we just talked about that. Add current reward cycle status to V2 POX.
Yeah, I created this issue. Yeah, so it looks like POX cycles can be disabled for a few reasons. And yeah, from an end user point of view, I think it would be, and even for us, like for documenting everything, I think it would be useful to have a list of the reason why POX can be disabled. And
Yeah, definitely. Like missing anchor block or not enough support or voted to reject, all sorts of things.
too many participants.
Yeah, too many bugs. Just talked about this issue here. Delegate transaction from an address to unlock stacks. Munib opened this. It was just a question. Is he on the call right now? I don't believe he is. But yeah, I think it's been resolved unless he wants to follow up asynchronously here. We'll ask him after this call. Node to deadlock. So this is a fun one. You want to talk a bit more about this, Ludo?
Sure. I mean, there's. I think that I should be able to reproduce this bug on my machine because I did experience it. I did experience it twice.
Oh, great. Okay.
So yeah, as soon as I reproduce it, maybe I can get a code dump or something and share that with the team. Do you guys have any hint or intuition?
I think a stack trace would be pretty illuminating.
Yeah, if you could hook GDB into this and just just backtrace all threads, that'd be useful.
Because otherwise, I don't know. It's some thread that's stalled while holding the SQLite lock.
Okay.
That's the bizarre thing to me. Like, how do you stall in the middle of holding a SQLite lock? Like that would imply that the thread somehow is, yeah. That's almost like I don't want to say it's a bug in SQLite because it's highly unlikely, but the ability to trigger this like is something I would hope that the RuSQLite folks would like try to avoid or make it impossible to express.
Well, we do TX begin immediate. So when we're holding a transaction, it's equivalent to holding a lock on the database. And then if we do something that's like a busy loop or not even a busy loop, like if that thread stalls.
Right. That would hold it open.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a hint then. Like look for any places where we did a TX begin, but then we do a loop of some kind that is not clear if it will terminate, like an unbound loop.
Yeah.
Vote on a stacks chain chip in POX.clear and burn chain. This was an issue opened by Friedger. I think the conversation from this is kind of quiet now because we do voting on the chain tip implicitly using a burn block height. I think this understanding is correct. Like, do we need to update SIP 007?
Yeah, maybe. I think this is, if anything, just like a documentation update.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Question about this one. I think that if you vote for the last block of a reward phase, then you're getting a failure from the smart contract. Is it a feature or is it something that I should investigate?
Sorry, if you vote for the what? Misheard.
If you vote for the last block of a reward cycle,
Okay.
then you would get like an error 24. Is this a feature or is it a off by one issue?
I don't know. I think it's probably closer to a feature than an off by one. like the idea with the burn block height isn't so much that you're voting on a burn block height, it's that you're indicating that your transaction is not valid for inclusion in reorgs. And so what you're really trying to do is set the burn block height that you think your transaction should be included in or by.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know.
If it's the last block in the reward cycle, then that would mean you're stacking for 0 blocks effectively then, right?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, Ludo, do you want to maybe document this a bit more? Just
Okay.
so we can get some context. High CPU usage when running a stacks node. I too have noticed this. I don't know if the particular cause is what he says it is though, the reloading the unconfirmed state, or whether or not it's something like neighbor or inventory processing, or just over eager scanning of inventory state for block downloads. It needs more profiling, but it is something that I hope to work on after mainnet launches, because I intend to run nodes on my laptop and I don't want it burning my battery out. Invalid message preamble sent received. So this can happen when a node is just booting up and its stable block height is the same as its burn block height, but it goes away by itself. But the node shouldn't even be trying to communicate if this is true though. Type inference. I think there's a PR for this open, or at least closed now, for merge.
Yeah, there's a PR open for it.
Is it still open?
Yep.
Should we add that to the list of consensus critical things to get merged in?
Yeah.
Cool. Marked Genesis transaction receipts as synthetic. Not mainnet blocking, but we could do this if we wanted to make it clear to explorers that a particular transaction event did not come from actual chain state, but it was from something that happened prior to the chain launch. This error here from Gavin, I believe there's been some conversation about this. Is it a config issue? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can close it
Alrighty.
since he hasn't gotten
It's
back
7
on.
days old. He hasn't responded.
Also, the Krypton mining competition is over. We're effectively done with that setup. So
Alrighty. And that puts us at 7 days. So these are all talked about last time. Anything in the backlog that we want to talk about?
I mean, I would maybe just reorder them, and anything that we're actually not planning to get to, you know, in the next 7 to 10 days, we should just remove them.
All right.
Come back.
I have a question about related to the block limits. So
Yeah.
I think currently when you confirm microblocks, you
Yes.
count those microblocks in the block limit of the confirming block.
That's correct.
That's correct. And that's the behavior that we want.
Yeah. You shouldn't confirm an arbitrarily long microblock string. You should be punished if you do that.
Sure. Okay.
At the same time, if you're a correct miner and you're looking at microblock streams coming out, you're not going to even look at microblocks once the once the budget's exceeded.
I see.
So it's not like a miner could DDoS the network by releasing a whole bunch of expensive microblocks. Like that's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
the network would just cut them off.
But that does mean that miners are basically incentivized to always do minor reorgs,
To what? I'm sorry.
to do microblock reorgs.
It would depend on the fees, right?
No, because like if there are 100 transactions in microblocks,
Uh-huh.
and by confirming them, I'm expending my own block limit. I could just take those 100 transactions and include them in the anchor block instead and not confirm any microblocks.
Unless the transactions are marked as microblock only.
Sure. But why would anyone mark a transaction as microblock only?
Potentially because they want the lower latency.
But if you mark your transaction as any, then you get the lower latency, and you also have the option of being included in anchor blocks.
Right. So the user experience ought to be the same then, right? You
Okay.
get one confirmation either way.
Okay. I mean,
not-
I agree that the user experience is the same. It's just a question of whether or not we want, I guess, miners to be doing this. But
No, it's a great
I think-
question. I don't want to, I'd like to actually continue that. How would we do it otherwise?
Otherwise, we would have like the block limit apply to the parent block.
So if I produce an anchor block, then I produce a stream of micro blocks.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see this. So how would, I guess the question is like, how do we even enforce that, right?
I mean, it's enforced basically the same way. What you do is you load the parent anchored blocks expenditure. You evaluate microblocks until it exhausts that expenditure. And then you restart the cost tracker.
Actually, I think we do that. I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. I think we actually do that. Let me get some clarity on that real quick here.
All right. Maybe we should open an issue to discuss this.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to say that like either of these approaches is kind of okay, but we should just be sure about which approach we're taking. Because this also has the potential to be like a kind of disruptive change.
I mean, it would be consensus breaking.
Definitely consensus breaking, but like it's also, I don't know, touching portions of our code base that can be harder to test.
Oh no, okay, I just am looking at the code right here. We do reset the cost tracker back to 0 when the child anchor block begins. So
Okay.
yeah, and we load up the parent anchor block's execution cost, and we build the microblock stream to the parent.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we did the latter. My mistake. So that way miners are not encouraged to do this reorg behavior.
Got it.
They're only encouraged to not confirm a microblocks. What they are encouraged to do though is they're encouraged to cut off their parent if their parent produces too much, because otherwise their block could never be valid.
Okay.
But want to open the issue nevertheless though, so we can just make sure we're all on the same page. It can just be like a discussion issue.
Sure.
Cool. All right, is there anything else we want to talk about besides these breaking changes we're going to try to make sure are rolled in by Wednesday?
Yeah, I guess the other consensus breaking change that I don't know. Every time I modify some, there's like some tests that rely on this behavior, but it's actually improper behavior. I don't think clarity errors are being handled correctly by the transactions processor.
Oh,
Like if you have an assertion fail in clarity code, like the code should execute, that transaction should be accepted and billed. But currently I think that it makes the block invalid.
oh shit, yeah, that's a problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. That should be a fail, not an abort. Are there other cases of this?
I mean, I think that this is like, that just reveals a whole class of bugs, basically.
Okay.
Um,
Including like unwrap panic, right? Like that should not abort the block.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. It should abort the transaction, not the block, basically.
Right. Do you want to open an issue for that as well?
Sure.
Thanks.
We don't have any existing issues for this. I feel like at least for the unwrap panic, I recall there was an issue already.
Yeah, I think there might be an open issue for this. I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else?
I think we have a lot already.
Yeah, we just have like, 15 minutes left in the meeting, which I'm fine with. Let us go a little early if we're all on the same page.
Sure. Sounds good
All
to
right.
me.
Sounds good. I'll stop sharing.
All right, and then yeah, we have the chain states and the logs in the folder that Charlie shared. I think as soon as Jude, you have a core dump, we'll get the nodes restarted.
Sounds good. All right, I'm gonna
All
stop.
right. Thanks. Take care.